the two most important elements in the body, aren't they? No, forgive me if I'm saying things that you already know, but I've got to try and explain myself a bit. But so your brain, of course, is 60% fat, isn't it? And the answer is, do you know how to feed your brain? And if you look at the population and see that we had 25% of people with mental health issues, you could quite easily say, well, you don't know how to feed your brain, because you wouldn't have mental health issues if you knew how to feed it. And how I explain why it's so important to understand about that is, when you kick your toe on the bedpost, your brain immediately knows you've done that, don't you? And you're hopping up and down. But what has happened? How did that happen? So you kick your toe, and that message has passed through millions of cell membranes to get to your brain, and you know exactly what's happened. Now, when you want to talk about learning and understanding and comprehension, that might not be as powerful as pain. You know, pain gets through all sorts of problems to get to you. But when it comes to learning, maybe that's where you've got to be more careful about how you feed yourself, because every cell membrane is a liposomal package. You agree with that? And that was why the jab was so dangerous, because that was a liposomal package. So you need the liposomal lipids, that's fat. So you've got to have the right kinds of fat all around the outside of all those cells. And if what's been happening in the last probably 80 years, we used to cook, and I don't know whether your mother or grandmother cooked the beef, not you, of course, Brett, but the beef was cooked and you kept the lard or dripping, and that's what you cooked with. And then, and also linseed, of course, as well, made lino. Have you heard of lino for your floor? And oilcloth, that was all made with linseed. And it's one of the reasons that Scotch beef is famous, because the lino factories were in Scotland, and the butchers and hoteliers used to go from here to the Perth auctions and buy the beef, Aberdeen Angus or whatever, but a lot of it had been fed up with the byproduct of the linseed. So the balance of fats was slightly different in the body, and the fat tasted different because it was higher in omega-3. But anyway, those animals at that time would have been eating more grass and maybe a bit of oats and linseed to fatten them up. Now, of course, they're fed huge quantities of cereals and soya and that kind of thing, and the balance of fats in their body is changed. So they have a higher degree of omega-6, which of course is a pro-inflammatory fat,
of course,
and nowhere near enough omega-3. So things have changed outside for people, and then gradually, as lino gave way to vinyl, and when you had lino on the floor, you could throw it away and it decomposed and rotted away, but vinyl lasts for 1,000 years. So that started to come in, so the use of linseed went down. And people forgot about it, I think, to a large extent, and started to cook with other oils like soya and sunflower and those sort of things. And there was a man who did an awful lot of damage called Ansel Keys. Have you heard of him? Nobody heard of Ansel Keys? He during the war in America, he was given conscientious objectors, people who didn't want to go into the services. And what they were concerned about was, after the war, they knew there were going to be lots of people let out from prisoner of war camps, and they were going to be starving. So when they come out, if you gave them a hearty meal, it would kill them. So they knew they had to develop some kind of food to bring these people back to health gently. So he was given all these conscientious objectors, and he actually starved them. And there's all the photographs, or there's 2 huge tomes in the library at the RSM. You can read all about it. It's got the pictures and everything there. you wouldn't be able to do that today because it's just unethical. So he starved them and brought them all back. Developed a diet to bring them all back. But also, have you heard that the Americans had something, they have hard rations, they called K rations. Have you heard of that? So in their backpacks, and if they're marooned somewhere, they've got this food that's standby. And he developed the recipes, Ansel Keys. But also, he had a bee in his bonnet that he thought there were lots of countries, or 7 countries in particular he picked, and he thought they were dying or having lots of heart disease, and it was through saturated fat. And it was really just an associational study. And of course, he was also paid by the sugar industry, who wanted saturated fat to be the enemy and not sugar. So this is where the money thing comes in. And he was on a committee in this country called the Coma Committee, and the government liked what he said about that. It was a lovely little bit of demonstration. Oh yes, fat's the problem, saturated fat's the problem, and we will go along with your theory there. And it's that moment. It had started before, but that's the moment when we started to become unhealthy, because we started to cook with soy oil and sunflower oil and all those sorts of different oils. And when you heat those up and cook with them, you change the structure of them. And when you change the structure of them, what you've all been talking about is you want to put food in your body to sustain yourself and build your body. So you're putting rubbish into it. And we've been doing that for 100 years.